Hi guys, Imprisma here. So the Lantern Rite will end in almost a week, and this fight has been out for a more than a couple of days now. So I think almost all the players must have collected enough currency for claiming their free 4-star from the event. Most of the players should have collected it by now, I guess. But anyways, it is what it is. I should have made this video earlier. But if you are wondering which 4-star to select from the selection, I mean, it's a really good selection. There are very good 4-stars in there. So if you're wondering which 4-star to pick, because that's the only time you will get to pick what you want rather than pray for the grace of gods to not give you a C20 Barbara instead of a new character. So yeah, it's really important to make the right choice, and especially if you are free to play. So this video will mainly be focused on evaluating the choices given in the selection of 4-stars, and picking which 4-star will boost your account. Now before we begin, I should tell you guys that if you have any favorite character, or you like any of their design, their playstyle, or you main any character, just go for them or go for their constellations. Because if you are given the chance to pick whatever you want, you might as well choose your favorite character, or what you actually want, instead of forcing yourself to pick a character you don't like, because they are all 4-stars and you will get them anyway. So this is the selection of the 4-stars you can pick from, and it's a really good selection, I think, if I'm being honest. There are 8 characters that you can pick from, and the first 3 from the left are really good units. Like, you can't go wrong with any of them. They are very good. Now we will begin from Xingqiu, the blue. Xingqiu is probably one of the top support units in the game, including the 5-stars, and that tells a lot. And there are many roles that Xingqiu can fill. He is the best friend of every pyro DPS because of his burst, which applies insane amount of hydro. Xingqiu can be a hydro applicator, as I said, also a sub DPS, also a support, and a pseudo healer. And he can also deal absolutely tremendous amounts of damage with his skill. A lot of people might ignore this skill, but it has insane scaling and insane multipliers if you invest into it. So he also gives damage reduction, also a bit of icing on the cake. But yeah, really good unit overall, and possibly the best character in the selection. So if you don't have Xingqiu, you should definitely go for him, you won't regret it. Next up was Shangling. Now Shangling, again like Xingqiu, one of the best DPS in the game. Although when I say top DPS, Shangling is an off-field DPS, so you pop her burst, then you switch to other character to deal damage and cause reactions. So that's where most of the damage comes from. So like Xingqiu, you will be mainly using her burst for her off-field pyro application and pyro damage, so that you can cause reactions with your on-field damage dealer. She is used in top team comps like Child International, Raiden National, Ganyu Melt. She like that's how valuable she is. Her only real downside is the high energy requirements, which can be compensated by running a battery like Bennett, or giving her the emblem set with the catch, which works really well on her. So yeah, Shangling is really good. Now moving on to Beidou. Beidou is also a really good off-field damage dealer. You should have probably noticed by now how almost all of the good characters are off-field damage dealers. So like Shangling and Xingqiu, her burst is her main source of damage, but what I like the most about her is this skill right here. Tide collar, parry, full counter, whatever you want to call it. You can do some really insane stuff with that if you time it correctly. But most teams run her for her burst and insane scaling on the burst, especially if you are facing 2 or more opponents, so it shines more in AoE situations. Her burst triggers on normal and charged attacks, so she pairs really well with someone like Child. and also you can use her in taser comps with sucrose. So overall she is a really good sub DPS and a burst support. Also she is one of my favorite units in the game, so I might be a bit biased in her evaluation, but yeah, she's really cool. So like I said earlier, the first three units, Shangling, Xingqiu and Beidou, they are all really good units and you can't go wrong with any of them. But you have to consider one most important fact, that Shangling is a free unit. You get her for absolutely free after clearing floor 3 of Abyss, and you can get either Beidou or Xingqiu if you wish on any of the ongoing banners, that is Zhongli or Kanyu banners. So if you are planning to wish on any of these banners, you might as well just see if you get them, then you can choose anyone else. That is in the context of getting a C0 character. We will discuss the constellations for each character later on, but I'm quickly going to go through the rest of these characters. These are all niche characters, but they are not bad units by any means. They just see far less use than the first three characters. They are less universal. That's it, that's basically it. Other than that, you can use any of these characters and they will perform perfectly fine. If you like them, just go for them. Now if we talk about Ninguang, she is a Geo main DPS. She is really easy to play and is quite powerful at early game if you don't have any DPS, but she has fallen off quite a bit recently because of the introduction of Itto and the new Husk set, which increased Noel's potential as a DPS. So she has some competition in her niche now, and you can play her also as a burst support, and she scales really well with the constellations. Also bonus points for great sex appeal. Now moving on to Chongyon. Contrary to Ningguang, Chongyon was actually buffed with the introduction of the new character Shanha. He's mainly used for his cryo field skill, which infuses the active character with cryo, and now with Shanha being a thing, his infusion field has become much more valuable and you can do some crazy things like cryo DPS Zhongli. So Chongyun is a really good support unit. Now Jinyan, I honestly don't recommend picking Jinyan unless she is your favorite character. Yunjin is the most recent character in the selection, and I think most of the people are probably going to pick her, including myself. Now Yunjin is a pretty interesting character. Her skill is basically like Beidou's parry, but her unique selling point is her burst, which basically gives a buff on normal attacks based on her defense. So she is really good with characters who use normal attacks like Yoimiya. I think Yoimiya is the best character that can utilize her buffs, but you can also use her with the likes of Noel or even Child. Or if you want less meta teams, then you can also use her with Zhongli as your main DPS with Crescent Pike. That would work as well. So if you want a damage increase for your normal attack characters, then Yunjin is definitely a good pick. Now moving on, we have last but not the least Yanfei. Now Yanfei is an interesting case because when she initially came out, she was a pyro DPS, but the pyro DPS scene is so oversaturated, and with the likes of Hu Tao and Shangling, it's kinda hard to justify using Yanfei as a pyro DPS. But then again, not everyone has Hu Tao, and also she is more comfy to play than Hu Tao, but her C4 transforms her from a pure DPS into an excellent pyro support. This constellation opens up many roles for her like Shielder and Thrilling Tales support. Shielder and Healer with Prototype Amber can provide pyro resonance. With her C4, she becomes a really good support for Hu Tao because she provides pyro resonance as well as a strong shield. So her C4 makes her a really flexible unit. Now since we are in the topic of constellations, I'm gonna quickly go through everyone's constellations, starting with Ning Wang because she scales greatly with her constellations. All of her constellations are good, but This one is just insane. It's almost a nuke. C6 Ninguang can pretty much one-shot bosses. C1 and C2 are good as well, but C6 is a major power increase for Ninguang. C6 Ninguang is really different. Now Chongyon, I think the best constellation for Chongyon is this one. This decreases the cooldown of the characters inside his cryo field. So he is one of the few characters that can decrease cooldown. So you can pick Chongyon C2 if you want. Now for Xinyan, I think her most valuable con is C2, because C2 is a guaranteed crit and a guaranteed shield on her burst. It makes her really easy to build and also gives her a dedicated role of being a burst support in a team. It adds value to Xinyan in her otherwise underwhelming kit. But yeah, if you like Xinyan, go for her C2. Yunjin is also one character who scales really well with constellations. Her C2 is really good. It buffs normal attack damage. Her C4 is decent. Her C6 is actually pretty good too. So for Yunjin, C2 and C6 are the most valuable constellations in my opinion. So moving on. Any constellations you get for the first three characters, Xingqiu, Beidou and Shangling, are actually pretty good. Shangling's best constellations are probably C3 and C4. C4 is her biggest power spike. It increases her burst duration, which means more damage. Technically you will only be getting Shangling cons because you get C0 Shangling for free. Now moving on to Beidou. Beidou also has a big power spike in form of her C2. Another good constellation for her is her C5. Anything that buffs her burst is really nice because that's where most of her damage comes from. Xingqiu, all of Xingqiu's constellations are really valuable, especially the C2, which decreases the hydro resistance. I think it's really powerful. C3 is nice too. C4 buffs his skill and C6 is just insane. His C6 is possibly one of the best constellations of the game. Literally all of Xingqiu's constellations are really good. C2 and C6 are really powerful. So you can't go wrong with any of Xingqiu's constellations. And that concludes the video. I do hope that this video helped you in some way to decide which 4-star to pick. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to my channel for more Genshin content.